All right, I'm your host, David Wilcock, and I am extremely excited about the show that we have for you today. I'm going to be combining ancient prophecies, such as the Egyptian Hermetic text known as Asclepius's Lament, with Zoroastrian prophecies about the coming of the Saoshyant, or Messiah, and the idea of how evil will be defeated at the end of time. And then we're also going to have some very, very remarkable prophetic information from the Edgar Cayce reading 3976-15, among others. You are not going to want to miss this show. This is incredible, but I'm not going to talk about what we're going to talk about. Let's just launch right into it. Okay, so we are on the ancient and modern prophecies of current events and beyond. This is very exciting for me because we are also in the midst of part 10 of my unofficial divorce series that we've been talking about. So the first thing I'd like to do is to walk you through some of the ancient Egyptian prophecies of current events that we are now going through. And as I just said, the one that we're going to be reading is from the Hermetic texts. You may have heard of the book known as the Emerald Tablets. Well, this is something that comes from the Emerald Tablets. So this is actually a very, very cool thing that's going on here, where this text has been verified as being old even during the time of Christianity, because apparently St. Augustine was quoting from it. We're going to get to all that in just a second. What I find so amazing about this prophetic ancient Egyptian text that, again, was quoted by the Christian founding fathers is that it describes what's happening to us right now with such astonishing accuracy that it suggests that everything that we're going through right now has all been predicted long ago, and it is part of an amazing transformation of our society. So first of all, we're going to go into the dating of when this was done. So a book that was written about this text by G.R.S. Mead called Thrice Greatest Hermes, this is a book from 1906, says that this particular ancient scripture, it is impossible to base upon it any certain conclusions as to the date of the original or of its precise worth in the history of religion. So right there we're seeing that there is a debate over exactly how valuable this might be, and the idea being that the worth is very high. In other words, the Hermetic text, and especially Asclepius's Lament, is apparently of tremendous value to Christianity, is what he's driving at. So let's take a look at this some more. That, however, our Latin translation is an ancient one is proven by the fact that St. Augustine made verbal quotations from it. So this dates all the way back to Christianity. We're already quoting it. Therefore, we know it was in existence about 400 AD at least, but all the written documentation, everybody who actually had an opinion on this Hermetic text, says that tradition has assigned it to a far higher antiquity. Now, Graham Hancock combined two modern translations, and he essentially blended them together and took the best of both from Copenhaver and Scott. And this came out in his classic book that came out in 1996 and was incredibly essential to my early development. That is The Fingerprints of the Gods. So I'm just going to launch right into this. There will come a time when it will have been in vain that Egyptians have honored the Godhead with heartfelt piety and service. Of course, piety means, spiritual integrity. The gods will return from earth to heaven. And right now, we're not seeing extraterrestrials. That's what they're talking about. O Egypt, Egypt, of thy religion nothing will remain but an empty tale. Only the stones will tell of thy piety. Well, this really sounds a lot like the pyramid, doesn't it? Only the stones will tell of your piety. That's exactly what we were talking about last time, that the Great Pyramid has an encoded message in it about what we're dealing with. Okay, back to the slide now. And in that day, which is today, they're talking about right now, folks. This is the end of the cycle, okay? In that day, men will be weary of life, and they will cease to think the universe worthy of reverent wonder and worship. And so, religion, the greatest of all blessings, will be threatened with destruction. Men will think religion is a burden, and will come to scorn it. Scorn meaning they hate it. So I'm speaking to people who might not speak English as their native language, folks. Just remember that. As for the soul, and the belief that it is immortal by nature, or may hope to attain to immortality, as I have taught you, all of this, in these days we're in now, they will mock. They will mock the existence of the soul, they will mock the immortality of the soul, and they will even persuade themselves that it is false. Well, this is exactly what's happening. The gods will depart from mankind, a grievous thing, and this is indeed what's happening. We're not seeing ETs walking among us right now. Only evil angels will remain, who will mingle with men and drive these poor wretches into all manner of reckless crime, into wars and robberies and frauds, and all things hostile to the nature of the soul. Doesn't this sound a lot like what's happening right now? Yes, this is a very accurate prophecy of the difficulties at the end of the cycle that always happen. Then it starts to get really crazy, folks. Listen to this. Then will the earth tremble, and the sea will bear no ships. Heaven will not support the stars in their orbits. All the voices of the gods will be forced into silence. The fruits of the earth will rot. So right there, when you're looking at this idea of the earth changes and it says heavens will not support the stars in their orbits, this again appears to be a prophecy of the solar event, the solar flash as we usually call it, that apparently happens at the end of the cycle. It apparently changes the orbits of the planets. And by the way, folks, if we do get echo on this show, it is not us. We are not doing it. We will. Okay, good. It happened last time at 1 hour and 14 minutes. If it does happen, we've now got a solution that we can record clean audio. So we're never going to have that problem. Anyway, getting back to the idea of the heaven not supporting the stars in their orbits. Again, just take a quick look at this. All the voices of the gods will be forced into silence. That is definitely what's happened. We're not getting any direct communication with these beings that we know of, at least not in any big public way. The earth will tremble, the sea will bear no ships. That has not happened yet. So this is talking about, when it says then, it's talking about a then that we haven't even gotten to yet. Okay, so this is what we're expecting from this particular prophecy. The soil will turn barren, and the very air will sicken with sullen stagnation. This is happening all over the world now. All things will be disordered and awry. All good will disappear. Sounds familiar? Yeah, that's the great dark night of the soul that we're in right now. That's what this is talking about. And remember, this is very ancient even for Christian times. But when all this has befallen Asclepius, then God, the creator of all things, will call back to the right path those who have gone astray. Isn't that interesting? He will cleanse the world of evil, washing it away with floods, burning it out with the fiercest fire, and expelling it with war and pestilence. What is pestilence? Of course, it is a disease. It is a disease that's spreading to many, many people. So this is the prophecy from an ancient Egyptian text that pestilence is going to happen at the end, and that this is happening in the middle of while the Creator is calling us back to the good side and cleansing the world of evil. So when you look at this passageway, it's like a passageway, but it is a passage. When you look at this passage, what it's actually saying here is that we are going through a cleansing right now. The floods, the fires that we're seeing, the wars, and the pestilence that's happening right now, okay? This is the cleansing. This is what's happening. This is what we're going through to call us back to this positive path. And what's so fascinating about this is you're going to see a very nice parallel between Edgar Cayce Prophecy 3976-15 and Asclepius' lament here. They're the same. It's incredible. But just hang on, okay? All right. And thus, the Creator will bring back His world to its former aspect, so that the cosmos will once more be deemed worthy of worship and wondering reverence. Such is the new birth of the cosmos. That's what he's predicting. That's what he's preparing for. The world will be brought back to its former aspect. The cosmos will become something that we worship and we have incredible reverence for. And there is a new birth of the cosmos, which he had just said before, that the planets are not going to be in their normal orbits, right? So this is like the solar event. It is a making again of all things good, a holy and awe-inspiring restoration of all nature. Think about that. That is much, much bigger than what we've already seen, folks. All things will be good. All nature will be restored in a holy and awe-inspiring way. And then this is the part I really love. It is wrought inside the process of time by the eternal will of the Creator. Now, what do we mean by the process of time? This is one of the things that I really liked to geek out on. In my first book, The Source Field Investigations, I talk about this process of time. And specifically, just to lay it on you in a really big data dump. I don't know if I want to lay a dump on you. That doesn't really sound good. But just try to be more above board on how we talk about this stuff. It's wrought inside the process of time. In my new class, Gateway to Galactic Mind, what I'm going to be arguing is that we are moving through intelligent, invisible, geometric structures. And when I say we are moving through, I mean our solar system is moving through them. We're going to explore this idea that we are actually orbiting another star, that we therefore have a binary solar system, and that as we orbit this other star, we are moving through geometry. That the geometry that we move through takes 25,920 years to complete itself in terms of one orbit. That's why they call it the Great Year. The Great Year is actually the year of our solar system orbiting this companion star that in the Masonic traditions, and we're going to talk about this in my class, it's called the dark star. And there's all kinds of interesting connections in ancient scriptures and mystery teachings about this dark star. And in fact, they also call it the Black Sun. And one of the German secret societies was actually called the Order of the Black Sun. So this is a very interesting subject. The idea that there is a hidden knowledge about that our star is binary, that we're orbiting another star, and that the effect of what they call the precession of the equinoxes, this 25,000-year cycle, the tilt in the stars in the night sky, that is actually being caused by us orbiting another star. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about in Gateway to Galactic Mind. Is way beyond the depth I want to go into today, because I'm already 15 minutes in, and I'm only on like, what, 20 slides in, not even. Okay. What is the process of time? I'm going to argue that as we orbit this parallel star, that we're going through a series of geometric structures that the star itself makes as it's sitting there, and those geometric structures also hold the planets in place. We'll see how all the planets in our solar system have perfect geometric relationships between them. And so this geometry is very, very important because it appears to be actually a greater source of intelligence than a normal human consciousness from one brain. This geometry is super intelligent. This geometry is far, far, far more realized as an embodiment of universal and galactic consciousness than what we could hold in ourselves. And as we move through this geometry, we are also moving through cycles of time that always seem to have an intelligent template involved in them. So there's different cycles of time. There's 2,160 years. That's the age of the zodiac. We talked about this in the previous video, how events in Roman history from 2,160 years ago are overlapping and reiterating into our history. And the interesting thing that all these ancient prophecies seem to be steering us towards is that as each culture goes through its cycles, it is following a pattern, which we call the hero's journey. The hero's journey, once again, is, if you're a Christian, you could very simply define it as the story of Christ. The hero's journey is this blueprint of our evolution that we go through in the galaxy. If you remember what we were talking about last time, I gave you this very novel concept that galactic consciousness is what the Law of One series, that's my personal spiritual source that I've always used all these years, hundreds of specific scientific things that were argued in 1981 to 83, where the science itself did not emerge until many years later. So all of my books are derivations of the law of one in various forms. And now I like to get a little bit more on the nose and tell you, okay, this came from the law of one, instead of just trying to redo it scientifically without, like in the source field investigations, in the appendix, I say, okay, all this came from the law of one, but I didn't really explain it beat by beat. Law of one philosophical model is a scientific model of the cosmos where it's intelligent and alive, and where geometry is actually super intelligent. So as we move through this geometry, we're getting upgraded. So this is a very much more technical discussion of what Christians would call the rapture, what most people would call the ascension, this concept that we get some sort of light body activation at the end of this 25,920-year cycle. But how do we get that activation? How does it play out in the lives of nations? Well, apparently, whether it's our own personal story or a nation's story, there is a series of plot points called the hero's journey. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about the hero's journey as time goes on, because what I believe has now occurred is that everyone on Earth is off of their small independent cycles, and they've now moved into big, gigantic global cycles. And so how the future proves the past, and I'm going to bring up this amazing, amazing Edgar Cayce reading, 3976-15, which was dictated in a very nice part of Manhattan on January 19th, 1934, with a beautiful crowd of people there at the time. And you can go online and look this up. One of the people was T. Mitchell Hastings, Jr., who I believe owned the house that they were doing this in. HLC is Hugh Lynn Cayce. So this is a prophetic reading that totally relates to everything that's going on right now, folks. 3976-15. This is, by the way, back to camera over here, yeah. This is the classic Edgar Cayce Earth Changes reading, by the way. This is the reading that says the greater part of Japan must go into the sea, California must go into the sea. Whenever this pole shift eventually happens, it's talking about what land shifts, earth changes we're expected to see after this shift. But the shift is only at the end, okay? And there's a lot of stuff that happens before the shift. We've talked about the fact that you don't have to worry about the shift. If you've bothered to be a good person, you're going to be totally fine. You'll be taken to safety one way or another. Only the most evil people have to live through this on the physical earth. And I doubt that you're one of the most evil people, or else you're watching this, if you're watching this. But maybe the most evil people are watching this too. But we will forgive you. Look, I've just done it. I'm not kidding. I'm not going to go back on my word. That's one thing I'm really specific about. If you come forward, you're a good guy. And that includes Bill. It does. Okay? No judgment. You tell us everything, and we're going to let this go. I will, at least, and I'll encourage all my people to. So here we go. This reading was regarding the spiritual, mental, and physical changes which are coming to the earth. So that sets up the future, which we're in now, to give it a prophetic information. Remember, Edgar Cayce's readings were very prophetic, many, many accurate future prophecies. This is just something that now talks about our present and will probably get you very excited. So it is a fairly unambiguous prophecy of the coming solar flash, which we see right here. And he talks about the pole shift, but most people don't realize Cayce also had the solar flash in a sense. Very, very occulted, very hidden, but still there. He says, as to the, this is his source now. It's not Edgar Cayce, it's the source, which he said was Christ, by the way. As to the material changes that are to be as an omen, as a sign to those on earth that this is shortly to come to pass, that something that the second coming of Christ is what he's talking about. As has been given of old, meaning the ancient prophecies of the solar flash, the sun will be darkened, and the earth shall be broken up in diverse places. So the theory that we're working with, the theoretical understanding, is the idea that the sun may in fact become dark after the solar flash for a period of time. We don't know exactly how long, but it appears that the sun might give off a big flash of light and then temporarily become very dark, and that its brightness increases again over the course of 3 days. So, again, the Cayce readings are saying that as it was said in times of old, and the old times are always talking about the solar emission, okay, the sun will be darkened and the earth will be broken up in diverse places. So this is the solar flash, the sun gets dark, Pole shift, earth changes. It's all in there. And then shall be proclaimed through the spiritual interception in the hearts and minds and souls of those who have sought his way, that his star has appeared. This is meaning Christ now, and will point the way for those who enter into the Holy of Holies in themselves. So when they say his star will have appeared, this is the way the sun changes. And where many of the prophecies say that the sun's appearance will change, obviously the new star, there's going to be a new star, it's dark, and then it's actually, it starts to become bright again. This is going to be seen as the star of the Creator, that the Creator has rejuvenated the star and rejuvenated the solar system. That's how this particular prophecy talks about this. Back to the slide. As to those things that deal with the mental of the earth, these shall call upon the mountains to cover many. Just hang in there because it's a little cryptic, but I'll explain it. As ye have seen those in lowly places raised to those of power in the political, in the machinery of nations' activities, so shall you see those in the high places reduced and calling on the waters of darkness to cover them. So here they're saying, call upon the mountains to cover, call upon the waters of darkness to cover. What this appears to be saying, those in high places who are lowly, these lowly people get raised to high positions. Bill Gates looked pretty frickin' lowly, right? He gets raised to the position of being the director of Microsoft, and there's been a lot of speculation as to the fact that he was essentially led by the hand into this, that it wasn't something that just happened, where his operating system becomes, for a while, really the only thing that was on any computers other than if you had an Apple, okay? So they will be reduced, and then they will want to be covered by the mountains or the waters of darkness. The waters of darkness and the mountains thing seems to be talking about the mountains of disinformation, the mountains of fake information that are coming out, that they're trying to just cover all this up so that as these people in high places are being reduced, they're going to try to cover up for it. But again, it says they will be revealed. So let's go back to the slide now. And those who in the inmost recesses of themselves awaken to the spiritual truths that are to be given, and those places that have acted in the capacity of teachers among men, the rottenness of those who have ministered in places, and he's talking about politics, will be brought to light, and turmoils and strifes shall enter. So again, it is from these people who are the spiritual healers that the rottenness will be brought to light. So this is talking about what's happening right now. Edgar Cayce, as you can see right here, predicted the mass exposure and downfall of the political elite, those who were raised from lowly places up to political ideals, and that their rottenness will be brought to light, and turmoils and strifes shall enter. That is exactly what's happening right now. And if you say, I don't know about this prophecy, maybe, maybe not, it's kind of generic. Well, wait, hold on, we're not even done yet. But this is a very good part. So let's just go back to the slide now. The rottenness will be brought to light. It's talking about politics. And as there is the wavering of those who would enter as emissaries, as teachers from the throne of life, the throne of light, the throne of immortality, and wage war in the air with those of darkness, then know ye the Armageddon is at hand. So this, I think this is talking about people on earth who would enter here as human beings. They're emissaries, teachers, and they're bringing in the knowledge of immortality, the knowledge of light, the knowledge of life. But they're wavering, and that's what's happening right now. Everybody's stumbling, nobody's really sure, and they're waging war in the air with those of darkness. Well, waging war in the air, okay? You got to always remember, prophecies are funny. The air could actually also refer to the airwaves. It could refer to the internet. Because back then, the airwaves would have been things like the radio and television that just started to come out in the 1930s, I believe, or was just getting started around this time. So they might wage war in the air. So that could be airwaves. Know that the Armageddon is at hand. In other words, this is what's going on right now. And this same quote also talks about the idea that at least the preliminary second coming of Christ is the awakening Christ spirit within so many people here on earth. That part of the second coming they like to talk about. Okay, back to the slide. So And waging war in the air could also be actual physical wars involving air fights, and this could also refer to UFO battles that we haven't even seen yet, but are starting to become visible now. We're getting ready to see disclosure, and I talked about the idea that these are weapons and they could be used as weapons. Know ye, the Armageddon is at hand. For with the great numbers of the gathering of the hosts, of those who have hindered and would make for man and his weaknesses stumbling blocks. So they're talking about the great number of evil people out there that are trying to make stumbling blocks for us. They shall wage war with the spirits of light, which is people like us, who come into the earth for this awakening, who have been and are being called by those of the sons of men into the service of the living God. The weakling, the unsteady, this is all of us, folks. The weakling and the unsteady must enter into the crucible. Wow, I'm getting a 444 on this right now. Somebody said Bill Cooper is the only guy who got it right. Well, no, there's other people too, folks. The weakling, the unsteady, must enter into the crucible and become as naught, meaning you lose everything. You have to lose everything. You have to be totally stripped down. Even as he. So now Casey's source is referring back to Jesus and the death on the cross. It is the final initiation, the death to the ego, the death to the self. And become as naught, even as he, that they may know the way. Now this is where it gets a little edgy, folks, where he says, I, Halaliel, have spoken. Okay, so this deserves a little bit of a discussion. If you go to the Edgar Cayce ARE, Association of Research and Enlightenment Institute in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and you read their periodicals and their publications, there is a widespread discussion about the idea that Edgar Cayce was starting to become too concerned about his haters. And this is extremely dangerous for somebody in his position. A lot of people hated him, they were getting hate all the time, and they were starting to get really upset about it. And that lowers your frequency. So the Cayce readings taught us that you're not allowed to get mad, basically, beyond a certain point. You are not allowed to get mad at your haters. Cayce did get mad at his haters, and later Cayce readings came in and said that Halaliel, to some degree, was a trickster entity that was invited in because Cayce's alignment, his positive polarity, had slipped. He was getting too angry at other people. If you get angry, if you have a sustained conscious thought of anger at another person, you will get nailed. So what happens if you're a guy like Cayce? The beings are required to have a negative entity take over part of your signal. So you can kind of see where this happens, because Halaliel implies that there might be earth changes in 1998. One of his other readings says that. I do believe this particular reading, 3976-15, is a mixed contact, where you have Halaliel, but then you have the source mostly talking. Halaliel is only doing a little of this, I believe, because there's a lot of it that's very accurate. It's very accurate that we're seeing the rottenness, people in lowly places elevated to politics, the rottenness is being exposed. It's talking about the information war. It's basically talking about the censorship, the war that will be fought. And then it says everybody is going to enter into the crucible and be stripped down to nothing. That's the global initiation, and that's what's happening right now. Now let's go back to the slide. In America, there's an actual American political prophecy. In America, in the political forces, we will see, this has not happened yet, folks. This is what's happening right now, and I'm getting frickin' chills. Literally, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the hair is literally standing up on my arm, okay? In America, in the political forces, we see a restabilization of the power of the people into their own hands, a breaking up of the rings and the cliques in many places. Illuminati. Did I say that? Yeah, I did. A breaking up of the rings and the cliques in many places. The power goes back to the people. This is exactly what we're talking about, but here it is in 1934. And then they ask the question, is America fulfilling her destiny? And then, rather should the question be sought, my children, are individuals fulfilling those channels to which they have been brought through their own application of the knowledge within themselves to fulfill their position? In other words, the questioner is like, okay, well, is America fulfilling their destiny? And he says, way before Kennedy, ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country. This is exactly the same thing. The question should be, are we as individuals fulfilling and applying the knowledge within ourselves and taking the positions to save humanity, save America, and save our destiny. For each and every one, each and every nation is led, even as in heaven. So this means evil's not going to take over. We're all being guided by these positive, benevolent ETs. For that you see in earth is a pattern of that which is in the mind, as you well know, and is as a shadow of spiritual truth, life, and light. So the life that we have on earth is a pattern of what is in our minds. So whether we have evil on earth, that is a projection of evil within ourselves. So as we're healing the evil in ourselves, the evil on the earth will holographically heal, partly through the concentrated actions of the just and partly just by the energy. Okay. Is America fulfilling her destiny as a whole? This is as has been given. Now, folks, brace for this one. If there is not the acceptance in America of the closer brotherhood of man, if Americans are not loving their neighbors as themselves, and look at how much strife there is in America right now. This is not happening. We're not seeing brotherly love in America, okay? So if there is not the acceptance in America of the brotherhood of man, the love of the neighbor as self, civilization must wend its way westward, and again must Mongolia, must a hated people be raised. I mean, honest to God, both arms. Can you see it, sweetheart? All the hair on my arm. Can you see it now? All the hair is sticking up. Okay, I can't fake that. Okay, that's real. The hated, the hated people of Mongolia must again be raised. This is China. In 1934, the Casey reading said that China would be again raised as a hated people if we, as Americans, strayed from our course of loving our neighbors as ourselves. This is exactly what we're seeing. Go to the slide now. Chinese military discussed weaponizing... This is public news, so I can talk about it. That's what they told me with YT YouTube. You know, I can talk about it once it's public. Chinese military discussed weaponizing this in 2015 to cause the enemy, that's us, to cause the enemy's medical system to collapse. Holy crap. In 1934, Casey said that a hated people would again rise if Americans fell from their spiritual integrity. This is happening right now, folks. That prophecy's in 1934, but it's 2020 and 2021 where it came true. It's incredible. But it said, divine forces guard over our country, that this will all work out for the positive and we will be restored, okay? So they knew back then that all this stuff with China was going to happen. They knew in 1934. And even back then they were talking about the king's son, the raising of the king's son. And now we found out, I was going to get a picture of this, I didn't have time. If you look at Uncle Adolf, you know, from Germany, and I can't say the other word, and then you compare him to the King of England, they look identical, almost identical. And that's because apparently A was the illegitimate son of the King of England. So they call him the king's son in the Casey readings. That's another thing I saw. I didn't have time to put all that in there. So it's not from a freaking bat, okay? And now it's all coming out that, no, this was something where they wanted to gain a particular function. I'm not going to say those three words together. Research like this to cause the enemy's medical system collapse, to do a soft coup, a takeover where you never need to fire a single shot. That's what's now going public. It's all part of this Great Awakening. It's all happening right now. The hated people must again rise against America. Well, they're not hated. I mean, this is the thing. But here's the thing, folks. It is causing hate to occur. I don't hate them. You shouldn't hate them either. It's just the way the Casey reading was worded. But right now, as people are identifying the idea that this could be happening, they're getting angry. Now, it also says China will be fully restored to Christ as well. So this is a regime. This is not the people. So please don't hate the people over what their leaders, so-called leaders, are doing. These people are in tyranny, and they deserve our help, and they should not be hated. Please do not engage in hate against anyone, and especially not Asians right now. They need our help and support. They do not need to be hated. Just want to make that clear. Okay, so now let's go back to the Casey reading, because this is going to go on. is America filling its destiny? Is it filling rather, because remember, it just warned what would happen if we don't, and that's exactly the timeline we're on, all these years later, 70, 80 years later. Is it filling rather its place that destined in the experience of peoples of a nation? What have you done with the knowledge that you have, respecting the relationships of the Creator to your fellow man? And it is talking about you. Don't expect that this is just some hypothetical question. It's actually talking to you. Do you have enough haters right now? Are you doing enough to make sure this is all going to work out right now? Okay, back to the slide. What have you done with the knowledge you have respecting the relationships of your Creator to your fellow men and women? And again, remember, this is patriarchal language because it's 1934. They didn't know any better back then. Have you made known that you know of His ways, God's ways, among thy fellows? Are you talking about spirituality with other people you know? Yea, here and there, as you have seen, America has become not only the greater of these who have sent those who would make known secular ways, but also does harbor within its bosom those things of other lands that are making, as it were, a leaven to the whole. So this is another frustratingly encrypted Casey prophecy where it's saying that America has been a spiritual leader as well as a secular leader. That's what it actually says. We're leading spiritually. A lot of spiritual leaders come out of America as well as secular leaders. And here, there, for as given, His messenger shall appear there. This is very interesting. His messenger shall appear in America. Well, they say that there's many messengers, okay? It's not just one. And they talk about John Peniel. We're going to see that in a minute. Hence, the Creator is finding those people who make the paths straight. The intelligent infinity is reaching out to you if you want to do something good. There is soon to come into the world a body. See paragraph 6 below. This is the John Peniel thing, and it's more than one person, so just bear this in mind. There is soon to come into the world a body, one of our own number here, that to many has been a representative of a sect, a thought, a philosophy, a group. So they're talking about one, but again, it's many people who might be in a particular sect, thought, philosophy, or group. Yet they are beloved of all men in all places where the universality of God in the earth has been proclaimed. So now they're setting it up, okay, spiritual leaders who teach that the Creator is universal. You with me? It's a little bit dense, I know, the Casey readings can be. Where the oneness of the Father as God is known and is consciously magnified in the activities of individuals who proclaim the acceptable day of the Lord. Hence that one John the Beloved in the earth, his name shall be John, and also at the place where he met face to face, Peniel. Okay, this is a big, big discussion, folks, because over the years, I've seen a number of people try to say, I am John Peniel. I am the John Peniel that was predicted in the Casey readings. I am the Savior of America. I have returned. Many people have played this game. The reading makes it very clear this is not one person. It's talking about everybody who is part of this spiritual initiative, who is being reborn in this Christ consciousness here on earth. And the pineal gland, it's the awakening of the pineal gland, the awakening of your psychic centers, which is, again, one of the things I'm going to be teaching in the new class, Gateway to Galactic Mind. I really hope to see you there. That is ascensionmysteryschool.com. Please go check out our website because I'm going to be able to go much deeper than I can in this video. We're not going to have any technical problems because we own the platform. No echoes, no problems. Okay, it's going to be great. We're going to record it, high fidelity, upload it. You'll be able to see that later on. I'll talk more about that at the end. Anyway, John Peniel, the pineal gland, and of course the metaphor of John the Beloved as the person who predicted the coming Christ. So what the Casey readings are actually saying, to just de-encrypt this, is that we are the John the Beloved of our modern era. We are the way showers. We are the harbingers of the coming Christ. The second coming of Christ really is the solar flash. And it's the fact that the galactic logos as Christ becomes the sun. The sun becomes an embodiment of the Christ energy, and it transforms the entire solar system. That's what it really means. So yeah, it is the second coming, but we are the John the Beloved. We are the pineal gland awakening to prepare the way for this big, big Christ returning moment that's going to be happening. Okay, so let's go back to the slide so that we don't have anybody saying, I am John Pineal. That's not what it is. So, His name shall be John. And again, they say there will be one, but there's many, okay? So then they say when, where is to be this one, because again, they didn't really understand the wording of the question that it's many people. So now they clarified that it is many people. In the hearts and minds of those, right there, that's plural. Those is plural. John Pineal is in the hearts and minds of those who have set themselves in that position that they become a channel through which spiritual, mental, and material things become one in the purpose and desires of that physical body. And then Gladys Davis brings in a note that says this appears to be the beginning of a new age of spiritual awakening. See 5749.5, paragraphs 5 through 7, 281.38, paragraph 16. We're going to look at both of those, okay? So again, John Pineal is not one person. It's in those who have set themselves to become channels where spiritual, mental, and material things become one. That's the key. Unifying body, mind, and spirit. For has it not been said, has it not been shown in the experience of the earth, the world, from any angle it may be considered, that he has not willed that any should be lost, but has prepared the way of escape in him, the Maker? And again, Casey readings are very Christian. Sorry if you don't like it. That's just the way it was written. But who is the worthy servant? He, i.e. the John Pineal folks, who has endured unto the end. You become a worthy servant of the Creator at this point. That's what they're saying. Then he has come in all ages, when it has been necessary for the understanding to be centered in a new application of the same thought, God is spirit, and seeks spirit to worship him in spirit and in truth. So this is where they're saying John Pineal is a collective initiative involving many, many people, not just this one guy. Okay, now let's go to Casey reading 5749-5, because that's the one she threw to, which she said was related. Then, as there is prepared the way by those who have made and do make the channels for entering in, there may come into the earth those influences that will save, regenerate, resuscitate, hold, if you please, the earth in its continued activity toward the proper understanding and proper relationships to that which is the making for the closer relationships to that which is in him alone. So again, you know, they get wordy because he was unconscious. Consciously, he had no idea what he was saying. But this is spirit talking. So there will be people coming into the earth who will save, regenerate, resuscitate, and hold the earth into its position for this new birth. You saw it in Adam. You have heard it in Enoch. You have had it made known in Melchizedek, Joshua, Joseph, David, and those who made the preparation then for him called Jesus. And Gladys Davis notes that the Essenes were started by Elijah, and you could look in the Bible for Malachi 3 and 4. So this is their way of saying, yeah, the Essene sect, if you read Malachi, it'll say that Elijah the prophet started the Essene sect, and that is where Jesus was born out of, by the way. That's one of the things the Casey reading says. You have seen his spirit in the leaders in all realms of activity, whether in the isles of the sea, in the wilderness, or in the mountain, or in the various activities of every race, every color, every activity of that which has produced and does produce contention in the minds and hearts of those that dwell in the flesh. So, why would he say contention? The contention is the idea that, yeah, when the spiritual knowledge comes through, it's contentious. Because what is he saying? The rottenness of the world will be exposed, and once again, the hated people of Mongolia will rise and seem to have taken over America. In 1934, he said this, and it appears to be happening right now. They actually did apparently do this with the election. If that's true. You know, well, we don't know if it's true, right? But hypothetically, maybe, you know, if the evidence comes out. Okay, so this spirit is rising again, and when it comes out, it produces contention. Not everybody's happy about it when you hear this knowledge. For what must be obliterated? What's going to be obliterated as we go through this global shift? Hate. Well, we're seeing all this now. There's a big cleansing going on. Hate, prejudice, selfishness, backbiting, unkindness, anger, passion, and those things of the mire that are created in the activities of the sons of men. So they are literally saying, again, this will be obliterated as we go through this great awakening that is happening now, that has something to do with the Mongolians trying to take over America and all this stuff that he said in 1934. Because remember, this is right around the same time as the other reading, same year. Then again, he may come in body to claim his own. And is this the second coming of Christ? Yes, but it's in multiple bodies. That's what they say. Is he abroad today in the earth? Is the Christ here? Yes, in those who cry unto him from every corner. That's a big one, folks. It's talking about you are the second coming if you are aligning with the mind, body, spirit unification and seeing that the Creator is one. You are part of this second coming. It's happening to you. This is actually real. In those who cry unto him from every corner, this rebirth is taking place. Back to the slide. For he, the Father, hath not suffered his soul to see corruption. That's why it's being eliminated on earth right now. Neither hath it taken hold on those things that would make the soul afraid. So we're not going to see corruption or things that make us afraid anymore, because people in the John Pineal Initiative are coming forward to claim his own. For he is the Son of light, of God, and is holy before him, and he comes again in the hearts and souls and minds of those who seek to know his ways. These be hard to understand by those in the flesh, where prejudice, greed, and vice of all natures holds sway in the flesh. Yet those who call on him will not go away empty-handed. Even as you, in your ignorance, in your zealousness that has at times eaten you up, you will still not go away empty-handed if you call on him. What effect does it have upon you to even get mad, to laugh, to cry, to be sorrowful? All of these activities affect not only yourself and your relationships to your fellow human beings, but to your next experience in the earth. Yes, the Casey reading said Jesus teaches reincarnation, and they taught reincarnation. They said reincarnation is a basic intrinsic aspect of spiritual life. And there's a whole bunch of quotes in the Bible where it says, for example, that Elijah the prophet has been reborn as Jesus, right? That's the reincarnation. And then the classic quote, who has sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? How could this man have sinned and then be born blind unless he had a past life? Okay, so look, I've done all that in my second book, and I'm going to do it again in Cycles of History, the Gateway to Galactic Mind class we're doing. This is really, really exciting stuff. So again, let's go back to the slide. What effect does it have upon you to get mad, laugh, cry, or be sorrowful? It not only affects everybody around you and the planet, it affects your next lifetime. Okay? This is part of Jesus' secret teaching, reincarnation. The Catholics didn't like that. They wanted an eternal hell. Hell is actually reincarnating in a bad lifetime. That's what it really means. And we can go through that a lot more later. Okay, so then she also said, look at 281:38, number 16. So this is indicated in this particular body which lies here. They're talking about Edgar Casey, through which the information is being given. You call him Casey, but John would be better. So John Pineal, again, this is their reference to the idea that John Pineal is the name of anyone who is a spiritually awakened soul, because they're saying that the full second coming is the solar flash, this reorganization of the solar system. That's when you're going to get what you want, if you really want to see that. But that the John the Beloved stage, the harbinger of the second coming, is happening in multiple people whose pineal is awakened. So John Pineal is very interesting. And also, I find it, they talk about a leader in America with the name of John. And did you notice that 45's middle name is John? So I think even if it's taking a while, you know, based on who you are and how much you love or hate this person, that's another John Pineal, because it's everybody. We're all awakening this way. So John from America, okay, think about that. Go back and watch that part of the slide again. You'll see, John from America. Yeah, that might be who it's talking about. Sorry, you don't like that. We're not going to dwell on it. Here's another one that she threw to, okay? 262:39, which was in 1933. Has not there been the promise that through you, in part, may come one who may be a blessing to many, that many may speak with those higher forces, higher sources, as face to face? And they're saying this to Casey. So obviously the answer was yes. And then there's another quote from 294:155, question 20, that also seems relevant. And they talk to Edgar again. They say, "Give then of yourself in the strength that he gives to you. For thou hast been called and chosen as one through whom bodily there may come a channel who may speak face to face with his peoples." So, of course, there's a very intriguing connection between Casey and myself with the facial similarities. I'm not going to go through all that again. You can read about it in my new book here. Let's go over to this camera real quick. Awakening the Dream, as I've talked about before, is the new book. And so if you're finding this fascinating, please go check out Awakening the Dream. There's a lot of really, really exciting things here. So to just summarize what we've been hearing, this Casey reading from 1934 predicted a timeline where America has slipped. We no longer see that we're going to be, service to others oriented. There's going to be a lot of lack of brotherly and sisterly love. And that at that point, this Mongolian menace will seem to have taken over the country, but it's only temporary, and the rottenness and the evil in the high places will be exposed, and there will be these new messengers who embody the Creator as John Pineal, and that they are essentially awakening everyone else's pineal gland, and they also say the Creator will guard over the world and make sure that nothing can be corrupted. This exact same concept is mirrored in the Zoroastrian prophecies, so I'm just going to keep blazing along so I don't try not to make this too long. We're already after 5 o'clock here. So, in the Zoroastrian prophecies, we have the coming of a sky god called Ahura Mazda. Now notice that he is pictured as standing up inside a disk with wings. This very likely, as we say on Ancient Aliens, refers to a flying disk that he came down in. And then he appeared before in more recent times, and we don't really know, maybe like 1300 BC, something like that, 800 BC. Nobody's really sure, but he appeared to this depiction of Zoroaster, original name Zarathustra, then anglicized as Zoroaster. So Zoroaster apparently received an ET contact, again from Ahura Mazda, who is depicted as being in the winged disc, just like the Egyptians. And what Ahura Mazda was apparently telling Zoroaster was the history of his people who were in Iran. So this is an Iranian prophecy. It used to be called Persia, right? So this was the Persian prophecy. The Persian prophecy that supposedly links back to the ancient times from before the Great Global Flood, where they lived in what's now Siberia before it was covered by ice, and there was a migration. And so some of the people went to India and some went to Persia, and the ones who went to India created Hinduism, and the ones who went to Persia were essentially rekindled by Zoroastrianism. So supposedly, Ahura Mazda was a UFO being who appeared to Zoroaster and who said, "I'm going to teach you the ancient history of your people because you need to know this." So this is how we get it. So let's go to the slide now. The Vendidad is one of the ancient scriptures of the Zoroastrians. Again, in-person contact between Zoroaster and Ahura Mazda led to this. In the first Fargod or chapter, the golden age of the ancient Aryans, these are all the people that used to live in the area that they migrated out of, in Siberia. The golden age of the ancient Aryans is outlined with their greatest king, Yima Kasheta, Yamraj in the Indian Vedas, who banished old age and death. So this is one of the curious things. The Indian scriptures have him as Yama, and the Zoroastrian scriptures, apparently without any reference to the Hinduism at all, called him Yima. So Yima and Yama appear to be the same king in two different scriptures, which again suggests that whoever was talking to Zoroaster knew about this king because he'd been there and done that. And if he's a time traveler, he could have gone, 10,000 years forward in time, just like that, to give this teaching about the past. So let's read more. So we have Yamaraj in the Indian, so it's Yama or Yima, depending on where you go, banishing old age or death. This was a great king, a very beloved leader. Zarathustra asked Ahura Mazda, "O Ahura Mazda, righteous creator of the corporeal world, who was the first person to whom you taught these teachings that you're now giving me?" And he said, "Yima, the splendid king, who watched over his subjects, O righteous Zarathustra. I did first teach the Aryan religion to him prior to you." And again, oh my God, David is saying Aryan, oh my God, oh my God. No, look. The Aryans are simply the people who migrated into India and Persia. That's all it really means. All the other stuff about the Aryan bloodline, about Aryan supremacy, even whether they're white or not, they weren't. Okay, they were Indians and Persians. They had darker colored skin. So that's what we're talking about. It has nothing to do with white supremacy. It has nothing to do with any other bad stuff. Okay, just so that we're clear on this. Back to the slides. Now, the history of Zoroastrianism, Boyce and Grennett, is this gigantic book. It's like 3 inches thick. It's all green, just a green cover. But it has a lot of amazing stuff in it where it talks about his future prophecy. Zoroaster's future expectations were fixed upon this loved and familiar earth. It is on this earth restored to its original perfection. This is the prophecy, right? We will be restored to our original perfection like the golden age of Yima and Yama. It is on this earth restored to its original perfection that the kingdom of Ahura Mazda will arrive. And the blessed are to live here eternally in his presence with solid flesh on solid ground. It was an end of history that he foretold, not an end of the world. And remember, according to Boyce and Grennett, the Zoroastrian legend of the end time, or what they call Frashokereti, is the fountainhead of all the other messianic end-time apocalyptic prophecies. The Zoroastrians, according to these scholars, had it first. And don't forget that the wise men who came to visit Jesus were Zoroastrians. How do we know this? The clothing they were wearing was the traditional religious priest clothing of Zoroastrians. The gifts that they gave were the classic Zoroastrian gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And these Zoroastrian priests were the ones who followed the star because they were expecting the arrival of what they call the Saoshyant, or the Messiah. So Zoroastrianism was created to predict and pave the way for the coming Christ. And so these guys were on it. So when they saw the star, they knew where to go. They knew it was the Saoshyant, and they brought the messianic gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh in accordance with Zoroastrian tradition. So if you want to get into Zoroastrianism as a Christian, this is a really good thing to do. It's a nice gateway drug, let's say, from just being a straight-ahead fundy. So they said it was an end of the history of the way things had been that was foretold, not an end of the world. Back to the slide now. Zoroaster's fundamental message was that the triumph of goodness would finally come when evil had been progressively weakened through the concerted efforts of the just. Human virtues such as justice, faith, liberality, and joyfulness will then increase throughout the world, and vices such as tyranny, enmity, heresy, and justice will dwindle away. So the triumph of goodness will come when evil has been progressively weakened through the concerted, meaning concentrated, ongoing efforts of the just. Doesn't that sound exactly like what the Casey reading said, that we have to awaken as the new John the Beloved with our awakened pineal gland, John Pineal? That we are the ones who have to awaken and prepare the way. We are the ones who have to exert efforts as the just. That's what the Zoroastrian prophecy is saying here. That evil doesn't just get magically vanquished by Jesus showing up at the end of time. It's us. We have to do it. So even the lead singer of the Bee Gees apparently might be coming around and doing his part to join in these concerted efforts of the just to create the triumph of goodness where evil is progressively weakened. Would that not be the most stunning plot twist of all time? Well, it sure looks like that's what we're going to get. I cannot wait for this court case. I cannot wait to hear more about this, folks. Vices will dwindle away. Fraud, deception, criminality, theft, all this stuff. Remember, we also read Asclepius' lament, that fallen kings and all this stuff, but that there will be an awe-inspiring restoration of all nature wrought inside the process of time. That was what that early Egyptian prophecy said. So they're all saying the same stuff here. Back to the slide. Zoroaster perceived the salvation of the world. This is very important, folks, in case you think you're going to sit in the armchair and wait for Jesus to come in the clouds. No. That's not what they're saying. Zoroaster perceived the salvation of the world as dependent both upon cosmic influences, cosmic striving, and on the sum of our individual human choices. Our salvation is dependent upon our choices. These two conjoined aspects of Zoroaster's teachings, emphasis on individual responsibility and the concern for the whole cosmos, made his doctrines strikingly relevant to the conditions and problems of the Greek age, Hellenistic age. So once again, the concerted efforts of the just, our individual human choices, we are the ones who save the world, not somebody coming in as a spiritual being. That will be the final stage, but we have to prepare the way, again, with the John Pineal analogy. So then they talk about the future body that we're going to get as we go through this change, and this is where it gets really exciting. Among Zoroaster's eschatological ideas, eschatology is the science and the study of the end of the world. Yep. Among Zoroaster's eschatological ideas was his teaching about the future body. And remember, this is Ahura Mazda, some ET that taught him this. That at the last day, well, it's not some ET, it's an exalted being. At the last day, the bones of the dead will be clothed again in flesh and reanimated by the soul, which has been existing apart in heaven, hell, or limbo, according to the individual judgment passed upon it at death. There will be a future body, this is very important, that is now more like the soul than the physical body used to be. It will be clothed again in flesh. The soul becomes flesh. According to him, each created thing, animate or inanimate, possesses its own indwelling force or spirit. And Ahura Mazda, as a representative of the one infinite creator, created these spirits first and then clothed them in material forms. So spirit came first. At the end of time, there will be a return to the spiritual perfection of the material form. Our bodies will return to a spiritual perfection it never had before, or at least not anytime recently. The blessed will enter into the kingdom of the Creator, Ahura Mazda in this case is the name they're using, in the ideal form of a just soul, clad in an unblemished body that has been made immortal and undecaying. Well, my goodness. So we're going to get a new body, a future body that is immortal and undecaying. And all of these Zoroastrian prophecies talked about that what would happen before this is the widespread arrival of evil on earth, and then the Saoshyant begins appearing in many people. I got more quotes on this, so just hang in there. In fact, let's go on. So we're going to talk now about the eschaton, this end of the world science in Zoroastrian philosophy. So there again is the word. Eschaton means end of the world, end of time, or climax of history. And the Greek word means last. So it is, as it says at the bottom, the divinely ordained climax of history, 1935, coined by Protestant theologian Charles Harold Dodd from the Greek eschaton, which is the neuter of eschatos. See eschatology. So it's basically the same word, but it means the divinely ordained climax of history. Now we're going to read from the Zarathustrian Association of North Texas. Yes, they actually do have one, believe it or not. Asho Zarathustra, Zoroaster to the Greeks, prophet of the world's oldest revealed religion. Well, that might be Hinduism, but it's pretty close. It's one of the oldest. Zarathustra lived in remote antiquity sometime around the dawn of the Iranian Bronze Age, circa 1800 BC. His place of birth was in the ancient land of Aryana Vaja in Central Asia, possibly somewhere around the Aral Sea. Zarathustra preached the monotheistic religion of one supreme God that he called Ahura Mazda, which translates as wise Lord. So when you hear Ahura Mazda, it means wise Lord, or one God. His message is a positive and life-affirming one, which doesn't demand that you believe as much as it demands that you engage in reason and action for every individual. His was not a prescriptive ethic based on obedience, fear, or love, but rather an ethic of personal responsibility. Isn't that nice? If you start to get the undistorted, more ancient prophecies, they're talking about that you're going to get a light body. They're talking about that the rottenness of the world will be exposed. The Zoroastrians have the same prophecy. The end times, that the righteous and the just will gradually wear down evil and defeat evil, okay? And it's personal responsibility. That's a very big thing in Zoroastrianism, right? That's good. A Zoroastrian is taught to lead an industrious, honest, and charitable life. There is no place for asceticism. Whoa!
So this is one of the cool things that you get when you go to Iran. You don't have to be a monk. You don't have to have no money. In fact, people always in LA, the Persian landlord, the Persian landlord. I was in a court case that I got out of in the jury trial for a Michael Jackson trial about where he had reneged on renting a house that was over $100,000 a month rent payment, and they were coming back trying to get unpaid rent because he stopped renting this house and canceled the contract out of the contract. I didn't want to serve in that jury trial, so I made sure that I got out of it by talking about my psychic abilities and that I predicted this and that it was online, and the judge recused me after a brief recess. But that was really fun, getting out of jury duty. I know you're not supposed to get out of jury duty. It's your civic duty to serve, okay? I'm sorry that I did that. But I didn't really want to be in the Michael Jackson trial about his unpaid rent. Anyway, what you find out is that I'm getting this jury trial, and nobody wanted to serve on the jury, okay? So everybody starts figuring out, okay, how do I make myself not on this jury? How do I look impartial? Everybody started dissing Persian landlords and saying, I'm prejudiced about Persian landlords. And there was a lot of like really blatant racism that people were using just so they didn't have to serve on this jury, okay? So this is the result of Zoroastrianism. The Zoroastrian faith doesn't teach you to be poor. It teaches you to focus on making money. It teaches you to try to make money, that you should be engaging in things that will make money, because as spiritual beings, you are needed to have this type of prosperity. You can't get anything done. You want to get something done? Beth and I were doing that whole thing today. I want to get something done. You want to get something done? Oh, anyway. It's hilarious if you haven't seen that video. You know what I'm talking about. Probably some of you guys in the comments will know what I'm talking about. Now, these are no Jedi mind tricks. This is real, okay? These are real prophecies, and we're talking about real stuff. So let's go back to the slide now. There is no place for asceticism in the Zoroastrian faith. The generation of wealth is part of the ethos, as long as it is achieved honestly and is then used for good and charitable purposes. Yes, let's finally stop this Judeo-Christian thing that says all money is bad and anybody that has any money whatsoever is evil and is not spiritual. That is not what the Zoroastrians teach, folks. The quintessences of his teachings, that's a nice word, the quintessences of his teachings are embodied in the triad, humata, or good thoughts, hukta, or good words, and huvarshta, or good deeds. So good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. This sounds very basic and very straightforward. The loftiest ideal for man is to emulate the Amisha Spentas, or the attributes of our wise Lord Ahura Mazda, right? That just means God. So we want to emulate these qualities. Vahumana is the good mind. Man must think for, I'm sorry about all the patriarchal language, it's just the way it was written. Man must think for himself before he can believe. He has the freedom to choose between good and evil, and then has the responsibility to reap the consequences. Asha Vahishta, or Vahishta, let me say that again. Asha Vahishta is the divine law. It embodies righteousness, truth, wisdom, justice, and progress. Every Zarathusti strives to follow the path of Ashta in its deepest spiritual sense. Kshatra Vairya is the divine strength and service that leads to an ideal society. So you have to have divine strength and service. So you have to serve society. That's very important. And we're doing that now as online soldiers, really. Spenta Armaiti, the benevolent spirit, is Ahura Mazda's sense of purity and devotion. You want to have purity and devotion, of course. Haruvatat, progression and perfection, and Amaritat, immortality and everlasting bliss, are the twin rewards that you get for leading this righteous life. You progress, you perfect, and you develop the light body. So Amaritat is the immortality, everlasting bliss body, okay? That's what we're heading towards. That's what this life hopefully will do for you if you're learning what you need to learn. Zarathustra presents a view of the world in which Ahura Mazda originally creates an ideal existence in accordance with the law of Asha. As the world progresses, there is conflict between the forces of good, or Spenta Mainyu, and evil, or Angra Mainyu. Now notice, Angra, this might actually be the word root of anger. I'm not sure, but I suspect that the word root of anger is the Zoroastrian word for evil. I should look that up, but I do think that's true. So there's conflict between the forces of good and evil after we start with our ideal existence. And then things get very non-ideal. In this cosmic drama, man is not a bystander, but is rather the prime agent through whose actions the ultimate triumph of good over evil is assured. Wow, again. We, humans, men and women, we are the agents through which the ultimate triumph of good over evil is assured, even if it's the lead singer of the Bee Gees, apparently. We're all stepping up. We're all doing our part. It is through us, through our diligent, dedicated effort, that the world is saved, and that's what triggers the solar flash, the real second coming of Christ. When the whole solar system changes and the sun is actually reborn after becoming dark for a little while, the light comes back and everything has been changed. The flow of time, space itself, the laws of physics changed, how telepathic we are, how telekinetic we are. And again, as I've said, you do want to be here to stay with the earth as it goes through this, if you can. And the key is to be slightly more than 50% oriented towards helping other people, service to others. So there's very specific spiritual criteria for what you have to do to be ready for this solar flash. And there's a huge, huge case for the solar flash and the preparation and everything. So this is why offline, not in front of everybody publicly, I'm going to do this 5-week class. It's probably going to be about 4 hours a week, maybe longer. Plus, my wife is going to be doing some stuff. She's going to be talking to you a little bit later about that. And she's going to do the singing bowls for us when we do our meditation. I don't want this to last too long. I'm already almost at 2.5 hours. I know I always say that. This time I'm really serious. I'm going to try to end it faster. So anyway, back to the slide. That's a good idea. Man is not a bystander, but is the prime agent through whose actions the ultimate triumph of good over evil is assured. Kaboom! Amazing. Ahura Mazda gives man not only the freedom to choose between good and evil, but we also have the responsibility to actively promote good and vanquish evil. Through the collective good acts of humanity, through what we do, we co-create the final resurrection of Frasho Kareti, when all will be in a state of perfection, or haruvatat, remember that word, in everlasting bliss, or ameritat. So in other words, we co-create our ascension, we co-create the solar flash, Frasho Kareti, and then everybody who's still here is going to be in perfection and everlasting bliss. Now, Zoroastrianism has many, many similarities with Christianity because, again, I believe it was written by the same underlying beings who are outside of time. It teaches a belief in a supreme loving God. It teaches the idea of heaven, hell, and individual judgment. It teaches that there will be an ultimate triumph of good over evil. It has a very strict moral and ethical code, which is basically the same. It teaches that there will be a Messiah who will come for the final restoration. And it teaches about resurrection, final judgment, and life everlasting. The words Satan, paradise, and Amen all derive from the Zoroastrians. Amazing. Now, I found this very cool link on the actual Frasho Kareti event, which is again part of this Eschaton. So this was in the encyclopedia here, and we're up to almost 16,000 viewers now. Somebody says, yeah, I've seen a picture of Nibiru recently. It's close. Well, Nibiru might be a name for this companion star that we're orbiting around, but I don't really see Nibiru coming into Earth as being what does this. It's the solar flash. It's in alignment with what you could call Nibiru, but it's not actually a planet zooming right past the Earth. That's not what it is. So the Avestan term Frasho Kareti translates literally as making wonderful. So it is the world being made into something wonderful, the rehabilitation of existence. This term corresponds to Frashgird, which is the Middle Persian term for the last judgment or the final day of humanity's existence. The Avestan term derives from the expression to make existence splendid. We have not seen this yet, folks, but we're working our way there bit by bit here. With this concept, Zarathustra abolished the archaic ideology of the cosmic cycle and an eternal return modeled on non-temporal archetypes, and instead proclaimed the expectation of and hope for an Eschaton. He introduced a linear concept of cosmic time, which is an innovation in religious thought that had enormous influence on our subsequent spiritual history. According to his doctrine, the final event will be completed not because of a cosmogonic ritual, but by the will of the Creator. The resurrection of the body and the last judgment are essential and significant aspects of frascio careti. So again, the resurrection of the body means the light body activation. In the Gathas, the frascio careti is felt to be near. Later Zoroastrianism developed an eschatological doctrine situating it further off in time within the concept of a great year. There you go, there's your great year, even though they got the time wrong. Divided into 3 periods of a millennium in length. So that part I would disagree with, but the great year is correct. It is the end of the great year. And each of these periods begins with the coming of a Saoshyant, which is their term for a savior born of the seed of Zarathustra. Well, it's probably not literally Zarathustra's kid, okay? It's speaking metaphorically. But there's the Saoshyant savior at the end of the great year who shows up. The last of these, which is the solar flash Saoshyant, the last of these will be the Saoshyant par excellence, the maker of the final frascio careti. Other scholars explain there are multiple Saoshyants, as I just said, and we'll see that in a second. The frascio careti is described in one of the hymns of the Avesta, Yachts 19. It declares that the Druge, the lie, the big lie, the Druge, or the principality or deity of evil, will be brought down, again by the concentrated, ongoing, focused efforts of the just. The diva, Eshma, or fury, will be destroyed, and the metaphor in the myth is of a bloody mace doing it. It's probably going to be something else. Fury will be destroyed. Anger will be destroyed. The diva, Akamana, or bad thought, will be overcome. And then it gets really cool. Hunger and thirst will be defeated, and the great god of evil, Anger Mainyu, deprived of his power, will be driven to flee planet Earth. That is so exciting, and that's what's happening. All the reptilians or whatever it is doing this, it's all fleeing. Encyclopedia Ironic had more to say on this, which takes us even farther. The only more explicit description of the events believed to take place in frascio careti is found in the Zamyad Yast, verse 19, at the end of the initial 3 sections as well as at the end of the final one. The agents who will make life wonderful, or frascia, remember frascio careti means make life wonderful. The agents who will make life wonderful are the creatures of Ahura Mazda, the Amisa Spentas. That's the people who are awakening, right? That's what they just said before as individual Saoshyants, or what the Casey readings called John Pineal. The Amisa Spentas, the spiritual and corporal Yazatas, those who make things excellent, the excellent makers, remember frascio careti is to make things excellent, and saviors, or Saoshyant, right there, which is spelled differently, S-A-O-S-I-I-A-N-T. So the people who will bring in the solar flash and make life wonderful are the spiritual and corporal Yazatas, the Amisha Spentas, the people who make things excellent and who are acting as saviors. And this is everybody. And then above all, there will be a single savior, the victorious one among all the Saoshyants. That is the second coming of Christ. Okay? I.e., what they call Ashtuat Areta, and that's in verse 1992, and his companions in verse 1995. So the companions come with Ashtuat Areta. This is the second coming of Christ, this idea. He has a whole group that comes with him. It is clearly indicated what will happen when life is made into frascia, or wonderful. What will happen? Life will become ageless, without decay, not rotting, not putrefying, living forever, thriving forever, and ruling at will. The dead will rise, revived by the one who does not decay, and life will be created anew in an excellent and perfect way. Now you can probably see why these Zoroastrian doctrines are seen as the fountainhead of later messianic prophecies and end times, because everything is here, folks, but it was written 1,100 years before Christ. Are you with me? Are you getting this? This is unbelievable. It's all the same stuff, but it also says that it is through the concerted, ongoing efforts of the good, honorable, freedom-loving people that evil will be defeated. And it's happening right now, May, June, July, military operations underway, trigger event, 10 days. Dude, I mean, I'm so excited. You cannot imagine. And to have the lead singer come forward, are you kidding me? Really? It's like, wow, there's so much going on. It's so exciting. Okay, back to the slide. Falsehood will be driven out of the good creation, back to that place when it had come for its destructive purpose. Well, there's a lot of lying going on right now. A lot of fraud, let's say. Ashtuata Reta, which again, remember, is the second coming of Christ, and this is their mythology, so there's a little bit of myth in here, but it's basically correct. Ashtuata Reta will emerge from Lake Hamun, wielding the victorious weapon which other heroes bore before him, and he will drive falsehood out of the world of truth. With his gaze of insight and strength, he will render the entire corporal world indestructible. His companions will advance, and rage, or asma, will flee before them. So this is the whole world being transformed. Good thought, or vahumana, overcomes evil thought, or akamana. The rightly spoken word, I can't even pronounce that, overcomes the falsely spoken word. Wholeness, or haruvatat, and immortality, or amaritat, overcome both hunger, or sud, and thirst, or tarshna. So wholeness and immortality are overcoming hunger and thirst. You won't get hungry, you won't get thirsty, you have a light body. And finally, Angramanyu, or Ariman, which is their word for Satan, will retreat powerless. So this is a great, great prophecy, folks. And one more for you. On earth, the Saoshyant, again, the second coming of Christ, that's the equivalent. Remember, the Zoroastrians saw that Jesus was the Saoshyant. That's why they came there. They saw that this was what the prophecy was foretelling them. The Saoshyant will bring about a resurrection of the dead in the bodies they had before they died. This will then be followed by everyone's last judgment as they go through the ordeal, right? This is like earth changes. The Yazatas, Aryaman, and Atar will melt the metal in the hills and mountains, and the molten metal will then flow across the earth like a river. So as you've probably heard, if you've seen my other stuff, do I literally believe that hills and mountains will be melted? Well, if the solar flash is bad enough, that actually could happen. I mean, the solar flash theoretically did actually melt things on the Giza Plateau. There are places on the Giza Plateau where you can see what appears to be large areas of like volcanic glass, as if there was like a blast that just melted everything. And we also see that on the moon, and it appears to correspond around the time of the fall of Atlantis. The Atlantean catastrophe might have had something to do with a solar emission. And there are definitely also places on Earth throughout Europe called vitrified forts where you see big piles of rocks, and they all appear to have been melted together. So it is possible that this is literally true, that the solar flash will be so intense that mountains will melt. But I believe we're speaking metaphorically. So when we're hearing metaphorically that molten metal will flow across the earth like a river, I believe this is primarily talking about the energy that comes out of the sun. Because the Zoroastrians have it as molten metal flowing across the earth. The Hindus, which supposedly derive from the same tradition, have the Samvardhaka fire. I've done this in other talks. I'm not going to do it today. It's not enough time. But we will do it again in the class that I'm going to be doing, Gateway to Galactic Mind. It's absolutely mind-blowing stuff. So the molten metal flowing across the earth appears to be an energetic event, but the solar flash may literally cause certain mountains to melt and actually to have lava. I don't know. It's possible. Look at the vitrified forts. Anyway, this appears to be a metaphor of the solar flash. Now back to the slide. All humankind, both the living and the resurrected dead, will be required to wade through that river of white-hot metal. But for the righteous, or what they call Ashavan, it will seem to be like a river of warm milk, while the wicked will be burned. Now, personally, I'm not very excited about taking a bath in warm milk, but apparently in the old days, this was a common skin treatment. It would take a lot of milk to do that, to fill up a bathtub. I don't know. It just is gross and weird. But that's one of the kind of little flaws, is apparently back in the old days, if you took a bath in warm milk, it was considered like a really cool thing to do. Well, the wicked will be burned. Now, the burning, of course, again, is like this idea of the solar flash, the actual fire from the sun that happens. The river will then flow down to hell, where it will annihilate Angramanyu and the last vestiges of wickedness in the universe. Well, isn't it interesting, the idea that hell might literally mean underground facilities, underground cities built by beings like the Draco-reptilians, and that this solar flash, this energy, will actually go down below the surface and will penetrate and annihilate all vestiges of wickedness on earth. So this is, again, very, very amazing. Thereafter, humankind will become like the Amisha Spentas. We will live without food, without hunger or thirst. We will not need any weapons, and we will have no possibility of being injured. The material substance of our bodies will now be so light that we will not cast a shadow in the sun. This is one prophecy that I actually don't think is true. I think we will have some kind of physical flesh and blood body, but we will be able to make it invisible if we want to. That seems to be part of the ascension. So anyway, back to the slide. All humanity will now speak a single language and belong to a single nation without borders. All will share a single purpose and goal and will join with the divine for a perpetual exaltation of God's glory. This is so exciting. And again, it fits in perfectly with a notion that we get from the Egyptians. Remember, we read Asclepius' Lament. Plato had something here that he got from the Egyptian priesthood where this is what they said. After the usual interval, which appears to be the great year of 25,920 years, which we're right at the end now, okay, so this could happen anytime. After the usual interval, or great year, the stream from heaven, from the sun, like a pestilence. Isn't that happening now? The stream from heaven, like a pestilence, comes pouring down and leaves only those of you who are destitute of letters and education. And so you have to begin all over again like children, and you know nothing of what happened in ancient times, either among us or among yourselves. As for those genealogies that you just recounted to us, Solon, they are no better than the tales of children. In the first place, you remember a single flood only, but there were actually many previous deluges. In the next place, you do not know that there formerly dwelt in your land the fairest and noblest race of men who ever lived. So this is talking about Atlantis, and it's describing them in a very positive way, but notice that it also said that we will be destitute of letters and education after this solar flash, this pestilence, this flood from heaven that comes down. That's what happened to them. They did not win out on this one. But obviously the Zoroastrian prophecies and many others say that we who are ascending, which I believe hopefully I will be and hopefully you will be, if you just bother to be nice, hopefully we're all going to get to go through this together. And we're going to encounter this everlasting body that we're going to get. So back to the slide now. And that you and your whole city are descended from Egypt, in this case, in Greece. You are descended from a small seed or remnant of those who survived this catastrophe. And this was unknown to you because for many generations the survivors of that destruction died and left no written word. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to run you guys through right before we're going to do a singing bowl meditation here is these prophecies from the Quran. I've dealt with Christian prophecies a number of times. There's a lot of great ones. We're going to hit some of them off again in Gateway to Galactic Mind. You're going to see the full unification of all these ancient prophecies. I'm going to show you how it corresponds with all the planets in the solar system getting hotter, brighter, and more magnetic. We're going to have new updates on that. And at the same time, I'm going to lead you through the sensational knowledge of intelligent geometry, how that geometry triggers this evolution, and how it actually defines the cycles of history. I will show you the geometric location of the geometric intelligent energy forms that create this cycle of history, and I will show you why and how all of those geometric forms are coalescing so that we on Earth now are part of one galactic story that is reaching its triumphant conclusion. What did Muhammad's prophet? Muhammad was the prophet, but remember, he was speaking to Archangel Gabriel. So what did Muhammad's prophet, Archangel Gabriel, tell us was going to happen at the end of the age? Once again, I don't have a problem with Islam. I do believe that Archangel Gabriel was a genuine ET contact. We can argue over the split between Sunnite and Shiite Islam afterwards. We can argue over how the book was interpreted. We can argue over whether Muhammad actually got all the words perfectly clearly or whether some of them were distorted, perhaps. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. But there's a lot of parts in this book where I believe Muhammad was hearing from Archangel Gabriel directly, transcribed it, wrote it down, and that these words are accurate because we actually get a better overview of the solar flash in Islam than we do in Christianity. There's a lot of good Christian stuff, and remember it says, the righteous will shine as the sun. He who has ears, let him hear. meaning we will have light bodies and we will shine like the sun. That's in the book of Matthew. Another really, really great one is, as the light shineth from the east unto the west, so too shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So if it's the ashtuat areta, to use the Zoroastrian term of the Messiah, it appears that this is something that happens when we are going through a light that shines from the east unto the west. So that's one of the biblical references. But remember, the Bible people are always quoting from these Zoroastrian texts too, and they're quoting from Asclepius' Lament, the Hermetic text. These make it very clear that we're looking at some kind of solar flash. But the light shining from the east to the west, remember, the whole earth, east to west, encompasses the whole earth, right? So this is a parable, which Jesus is known for. The whole earth is lit up at the same time. That's the solar flash. But that's about as close to the edge as you get. You get this idea of a rapture, you get this idea of a last time, you get this idea of a judgment. There's a lot of cool stuff in the book of Revelation, but remember, that was John of Patmos. That was his messianic vision. And it's put in at the end of the Bible, but we don't really know, did Jesus actually teach this or not? I mean, we assume that he did. Most people do, because it's in the Bible, right? But anyway, Jesus' actual words, but he does say the sun will be darkened. And that's another thing Jesus said, and the Casey readings talk about. That, again, is kind of a prophecy of the solar flash, like the idea of the light shining from the east unto the west. So I'm not a Muslim. I'm not saying that you should be, but I also respect greatly the work of Muhammad and Archangel Gabriel. And I want to read to you what Archangel Gabriel had to say about the solar flash, because it is amazing. And then we're going to do our meditation. You'll be ready for it by this point, believe me. So they call it the Day of Atonement. That's one of the most common names for it. There's a variety of names for it. And by the way, these prophecies are derived from a modern translation. And I'll show you what the translation is. So this is essentially an upgraded, modernized, direct, verbatim translation of what it actually says in the Quran, okay? So check this out. Unbelievable. When time suddenly disappears, time itself will no longer run the way we thought. That's one of the things Gabriel said. In the eternal moment of illumination, there will be a moment. The brightness of the heavenly orbs will be split open and will dissolve into transparent light. That obviously, the heavenly orb is the sun, and this obviously seems to be talking about something happening with the whole planet. Okay? Those who fail to live in constant expectation of this mystic day, those who regard this teaching as myth or imagination, will be severely disappointed when the last day actually arrives and they have not spiritually prepared themselves for it. So this is 77, 8, and 15, and again, the modernized translation is called Meditation on Holy Quran. So the brightness of the heavenly orbs will be split open. The brightness will be split open? Whoa. That means the sun's going to get a lot brighter, folks. And if you're not preparing for this, you'll be severely disappointed if it happens and you haven't made yourself ready for it. Somebody said sixth sun rising. And Larry Davy said fluoride cancel, or Lori Davy says, I can't even talk. Larry Davy says fluoride calcifies the pineal gland. Yes, you definitely want to honor and encourage the health of your pineal gland, and you got to stay away from all the halides. So that means no fluoride, no fluoridated water. You got to drink, nice purified water. Okay, the pineal gland and pineal health is very important, and I will probably discuss that in our next class. And again, if you've done it before, we're giving you a $111 discount. A lot of you guys who did it before haven't signed up yet. I know you might be afraid that I'm going to repeat myself or say the same things, but here again in this show you can see I'm doing new stuff. I always do new stuff. It will always blow your mind. You will not be disappointed. It's going to be the best $222 you ever spent, trust me. Okay, here's another one. Upon the mysterious day when time ends. Whoa, time ends? Yeah, that's what they're saying. All manifest being will tremble at the first thundering blast of divine resonance that will utterly stop the world. Then they say a whole bunch of stuff that's really scary. And then it says this momentary terror, it's a pole shift kind of stuff, okay? If you read all those things after the ellipsis, it's pole shift. This momentary terror will disappear when each soul realizes its spiritual body to be perfect, limitless, and holy. And this is Meditation on Holy Quran 79, 6, and 13. So look at this again. I want to stay on this slide. The mysterious day. There is a single day where time will come to an end. Every part of manifest being, everything on earth will tremble as this thundering blast of divine resonance. That's the blast, that's the solar flash, folks. The thundering blast, the heavenly orb splitting open, its brightness splitting open, the thundering blast, that's the solar flash. That's the molten metal coming down from the mountaintops that will utterly stop the world. Remember, this is Islamic prophecy. This is the Quran. But you will be, at first when the solar flash happens, you will be terrified, but it will be only momentary, and it will disappear when you realize that your spiritual body is perfect, limitless, and holy. So it appears there's some type of event, there's some type of ignition, and then you realize that you have this, you get this instant cosmic download. So even if it looks pretty scary, if the sun is going nuts and there's all this light in the sky, it's not the end of the world, and you will be activated as long as you bother to love other people. Now back to the slide. The day of truth. You must, it's very rare that you hear a spiritual work use the word must, but here they do. Oh, the 222, of course, as I said, historyschool.com. Now let's go back to this. Okay, a few more things to share. So again, it's very rare that a spiritual being would say must, but it says you must come to know with absolute certainty that from above your conscious being, as stars above the earth, you have angelic protectors gazing down upon you. Upon pages of light in the invisible book of your life, which will become visible on the day of truth. Whoa, that's the solar flash. So on pages of light in the invisible book of your life that will become visible on the day of truth, what does it say? These heavenly beings are recording all of your actions and reactions. Even your most secret motivations, they are perceiving and transcribing with perfect clarity. And this is Meditation on Holy Quran 82, 10 through 12. So this is a very important fundamental in spirituality. And it is the idea that there is what they call, in some of the Tibetan and Buddhist things, they call it the glass ceiling. The idea that you're in a room, right, and you think you're private in there, you think all the doors are locked and nobody can see. There is no room anywhere on earth that doesn't have a spiritual glass ceiling. No one is exempt from the beings, both good and evil, knowing exactly who you are, exactly what you think, exactly what your motivations are. No one is exempt. This is incredibly important because you don't hide anything. So if you think you're getting away with something, if you think you're getting away with lying, if you think you're getting away with cheating, if you think you're getting away with stealing, oh, my wife's never going to find these text messages. The hell she isn't. This is the Great Awakening. Don't do it. I don't do it. I don't want you to do it. If you're in a committed monogamous relationship, please don't cheat on your partner, okay? This is the stuff that guarantees you got 25,000 years to figure out what you did wrong. Okay, that's a long time, folks. Please, now is the time. Even if you're not spiritual, I would highly recommend that you get spiritual, because what I'm showing you is these ancient prophecies are talking about everything that already happened. The Casey reading said the sun is going to go dark. What did they say would happen before that? The hated people of Mongolia would appear to conquer America. This just happened, and it was from 1934. That this appears to be happening, okay? So please, again, don't take this lightly. And I'm going to be with you in this class, so the class will really, really help to give you the full overview of what I think is going on, and most importantly, how to prepare for it. There'll be lots of new stuff there. Back to the slide now. This is incredible. When the day of enlightenment, which again, they're always talking about this one day where the sun goes nuts. When the day of enlightenment dawns, the soul, which is now expressed as a luminous body, so now you become a light body. The face of its, this is from the Quran, right? From Archangel Gabriel directly. Whatever E.T. gave this to Muhammad. The soul will now be expressed as a luminous body. The face of its being will be suffused with calm joy. It will awaken into the supernal garden of divine presence, overwhelmed to comprehend at last the full significance of its own spiritual commitment. So this is Meditation on Holy Quran 88, 1 through 5. So they're saying that you're going to have a luminous body, and only once the solar flash occurs do you really understand how significant it was that you were running a spiritual path. So I get it. A lot of us are, we're frustrated. You saw it in Asclepius's Lament. You saw it in the Casey prophecy. You see it in the Zoroastrian prophecy. Everybody's upset. There's a lot of evil on earth. There's fraud, there's wrongdoing, there's corruption, and it's through the concerted efforts of the just, people who are actually becoming John Pineal, the new John the Beloved wayshowers with awakened pineal glands, who are paving the way for this solar flash, which is the real second coming, right? When this happens, in the day of enlightenment, and you become a luminous body, now you understand the significance of your spiritual commitment. So you might be like, I don't know about this spirituality stuff, man. I kind of pay attention to it. I've listened to David, but it's just life, and I'm living my life, and I got to pay bills, and it's hard, and I get pissed off all the time, and I'm depressed, and I'm sad, and I don't know if any of this stuff is going to work out. And the world is so freaking crazy, and it's so effed up, and it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. It looks like we're all going to die. It's very, very scary. Folks, this is the design of the cycle. It's the global all is lost point, which inspires everyone on earth, just as the Zoroastrian prophecy said. Everybody on earth has to be part of this. We all have to do this together, even the lead singer of the Bee Gees, apparently, which is mind-blowing. Soros, come on, buddy. Hillary, come on. Anybody? Are you ready? If he's doing it, Bill's doing it, you can do it too. Okay? We need this. We need to co-create a better future, and whatever your name is, if you come forward, I will support you, I promise. Okay? You might still have to be accountable for some of the stuff you did, but we could probably get you some kind of reduced sentence, I think. Maybe people are going to be so mad they won't go for that. I don't know. I would pledge for it, though. So if I get any type of voice as this goes on, that's what I'm going to pledge for, is clemency and amnesty whenever possible. Okay? If you do your job as a whistleblower. Okay, back to the slide. So finally, once you turn into a light body, you're like, darn, that's right. My spiritual commitment is a lot more significant than I realized. So let's talk about some examples, right? Your spiritual commitment might include the fact that you're nice to people at the grocery store. So think about this. If all you have to do is be nice, and you're getting graded on this, and remember, the glass ceiling is there, so the good guys and the bad guys know what you're doing. How friendly were you when you went to the grocery store? How friendly were you when you paid at the gas station? Are you interacting with people? Are you worried about whether they're stealing your money and you're like watching the money? Are you in kind of a distracted mode where you don't realize that you're there in front of another co-creative God self? Are you dehumanizing people? Are you looking at people as less than? I'm willing to forgive the lead singer of the Bee Gees. I did it, okay? For me, I mean, that's your process. If you don't want to do it, I totally get it. You might be very disillusioned. You might not believe that he's actually done this yet. You might want to say, well, I'll see the proof when he comes up into that effing courtroom. I don't know, fuck, that effing guy. I can't effing do it, okay? Well, if he walked right into Mike's office and he gave us everything and he told us what was going on and he gave us the insiders, and those insiders are now going with their faces blacked out on camera, and you got the generals talking about it, and they're saying May, June, and July. Something weird is going on right now, folks. Okay, now is the time to jump in, get involved, make sure this thing is going to work. And not through violence, just the opposite. Through jumping into the discussion, through contributing with information, whatever you feel you can do. Even if it's just prayerful meditation, which we're going to do in just a second here. All of this is very, very important. Okay, back to the slide now. So your spiritual commitment is much more significant because every time that you're meeting somebody at the store, you're going to see all that stuff and you're going to be graded based on how you were acting. Are you overall a nice person, or are you overall a manipulative, controlling narcissist? Well, you want to try to not be the narcissist. You want to try to be that nice person. On that timeless and transcendent day, human beings, this is again right from Archangel Gabriel, and there's over 1 billion people in the world who believe this religion, okay? So this is important. And they all have read this. Human beings will experience resurrection in bodies composed of light, and they will be shown clearly all the thoughts and actions of all of their lifetimes. Meditation on Holy Quran 99.4. Wow. all of your thoughts and actions will be seen. And again, you're being judged by every thought. Everything you're thinking. Even right now, if you say, I hate that mother effer David Wilcock. I effing hate him. Well, you're probably failing the ascension right now. So if you're still watching and you hate me, then congratulations. That's yes, please stop with that. All right. Back to the slide. How few human beings understand the intensity and magnitude of the swiftly approaching day of clarification. Those who do not really comprehend the nature of the last day are impatient, and they would like to speed its arrival. Whereas those who know the immense power of the living truth stand in trembling awe before the dawning of this infinite day. Meditation on Holy Quran 42:7. And then last but not least, here's one more. And I wish that this part of Islam was taught widely because it's in the Quran. If each spiritual nation practices faithfully the path revealed through its own holy prophets, then all humanity will return together to the source of love. Meditation on Holy Quran, chapter 5, verse 51. In other words, if we practice the teachings of our own prophets, then we all together get to move into the source of creation. So let's do